My name is Eduardo Simeoni. I'm standing in for Paul Travis, who cannot be here tonight, and apparently most of the other members. Tonight's going to be a quick meeting, basically a review of what has been done recently. But first, a little bit of background on the zoning, which is what we're going to talk about as far as choosing a consultant. Several years ago, zoning really allowed for overbuilding in the village. You could build up to 6,000 square feet, up to a R20 zone. And not only that, but if a large lot, let's say an R20 lot, was in a R12.5 zone, it could have the development rights of that particular zone, which meant that the setbacks were a lot smaller, and the house is therefore a lot bigger. We changed the zoning back then, which was a major change in the zoning by reducing the gross floor area that you could allow on a lot, which was 2,000 plus 12% of the lot area. And in addition, we changed the way that the development rights were applied by changing from geographical zoning to lot size zoning. So if an R20 lot was in an R12.5, it would have the development rights of an R20, not of a 12.5. About a year later, the zoning was reviewed again. It was reduced from 2,000 to 1,500, and with the slowdown in development, things really eased up. Lately, we've had much more development. We had people complaining, talking about what they felt was overbuilding, and we decided to look into the matter a little bit further. However, the scope of the review that we want to make is not so much as much as the size of the homes, as much as the character of the village and what really should be built today and going forward. For the purpose, we met with 4 consultants. The consultants that we met with were Nelson Pope and Verhis, located in Melville. George M. Janes, located in New York. BFJ Planning, also located in New York. And Studio A&B, Glynis Berry, located in Orient. Each one of these consultants were extremely qualified, and the meeting that we had with them was very interesting. However, the first 3 that I mentioned seemed to be more geared on a quantitative analysis of the village, whereas I think we were more interested in finding someone that could more have a broader view and have an aesthetic view of the village, somewhat like we did with the village center, where we created a form-based zoning in order to be able to recreate what existed on Main Street and Jobs Lane. Therefore, we're looking for somebody that really could look at what the village has of value, the homes that were built at one time that we are being told cannot be built again, and what is being built today and exists, and find a medium, a solution going forward that will reflect the character of the village. I would like to read the presentation, the letter presentation from Glynis Berry, which will give a feeling of where she's coming from. Dear Mr. Travis, thank you for considering Studio AB Architects for your study of the relationship of codes to the built community. My understanding is that you wish to explore the appealing characteristics of the built environment, identify common denominators, and compare with more recent construction which seems to be eroding community character. The study will examine the relationship of both positive and negative built forms and lot coverage to codes, as well as to seek to support a flexible, livable context for future development in keeping with the community's vision. Expected tasks include examination of existing proportions, evident in both the historic and recent architecture and site plans, consider the spatial relationships, changes in use and open space concepts. Number 2, visual record, a record of these characteristics. 3, examination of relevant regulations and their implications. 4, discussion of findings and workshop on preferences and issues. 5, recommendations for changes or incentives. 6, discussions and adjustments based on community feedback. This type of study is an approach to planning that particularly appeals to me, and it respects and reinforces a unique character of a particular place. Glynis Berry from Studio AB is also an architect, and in doing this study, we just don't want to have community feedback, but we also want to have an opportunity to really sit down with the architects that designed the homes here in the village and make sure that whatever recommendations are made really reflects the reality and what the architects feel will really benefit the village in the long term. Therefore, having met with these consultants, the Planning Commission would like to propose that Studio AB be afforded the contract to make the study, and we will present this recommendation to the board. And I would like to have a show of hands of whether we all agree to this.
Yeah, and two voted by email, right?
2 voted by the email, yes.
Or 3.
Actually, 2 are Paul as well.
Yeah, right.
So do we have a unanimous?
So we have 6 here.
Okay, so it's going to be unanimous, and we do propose that the Studio AB be recommended as the as the consultant to go forward with the study. In addition, once A and B is once A and B is starts her work, we also would like to schedule a meeting with her probably by the middle of this month, next couple of weeks, in order to map out the scope of the work that we're going to do. So that's as much as far as the zoning. Also of interest is the sewer. We have to go forward with this plan as well. There will be an updated sewer map and plan presented at our next meeting on December 3rd. We're also going to look to try to have a meeting with the commercial property owners and that are involved in the sewer district around the same time, so that we can go forward with this project as well. That's basically all we have to present tonight. I'll open questions to the floor if you have anything else that you would like to set forward.
Are lawns coming back?
Excuse me?
Are lawns coming back? Lawns and gardens.
Well, lawns are there, and hopefully there's more lawns than construction.
Have you gone down Halsey Street lately?
Well, I hope
yeah.
our new supervisor provides some lawn.
Yes, his house.
Right, if there's nothing further, then
Just one addition,
Yes.
I think, is whether the time frame for the consultant project is what?
well, Glynis would is available to start, I believe, on the beginning of December. We had discussed with her what the time frame would be. Most of the consultants were talking about a 6 months time frame. Glynis kind of left it open. She said it really depends. It depends on what she finds, how long it takes to put together the information, and also the meetings that we have. But I would say in general terms, I think that the study will take about 4 to 6 months.
How will the residents express their feelings about what they want in this village?
The residents are welcome to come to the meetings.
You know how many come.
Well,
You know.
we know how many come. I know that you proposed to doing a questionnaire, so we have to see, but that's something we have to discuss with the witness as well. We don't want to start.
I think it should.
Yeah, start.
It doesn't conflict, it has
yeah, we
nothing
don't
to
want
do with that.
conflict. Yeah.
I mean, from what you've read, that's fine, that's a professional's view, good. The residents haven't had a voice. This would be a voice.
Right. Yes, Michael?
I question why they're even doing these studies, because who are these people that are so outraged with these houses? Nobody's in this meeting, you're missing half your members, and who are these people that we're talking about that are so outraged by the size of houses? I don't know anybody besides Evelyn and a couple other people, and that's.
It's so useless. It's
My-
been so
my-
useless.
It doesn't make sense, and the other thing is, you're doing a study basically to try to stop the size of houses, okay?
No.
But you're building a sewer system which is gonna cause more density. So which one do you wanna do as a planner?
Okay, let me respond, even from a personal point of view. Personally, I think it's a vocal minority that is expressing the outrage that you're talking about. And personally, I favor development rights, but on the other hand, I also want to make sure that the village does not lose its character. And I am no expert in this, and therefore I need some help. And I kind of like this study because we have these conflicting voices. People who want to be able to build and like the modern houses that are being built, and they like all the amenities. But we also have people in the village who like the village that we had maybe 15, 20 years ago and want to maintain a certain feel of the village. And this is important. This is what is also gives the village its attractiveness. Because if we're overbuilt, like many other communities, you're going to lose that feel for the village and the way of life and whatnot. It's also true that many residents are selling their homes because obviously there's an incentive there for them to do it. And who's coming into the village is not locals as much as people from outside of the city that have the funds to do it and want a certain lifestyle. At the same time, we cannot let that get carried away. We have to try to maintain what was special about the village. What I like about Glynis Berry is that her approach is not just one of cut. How can we adjust here? How can we adjust there? Her approach is more aesthetic, more visual, a feeling of what the village should be, is becoming, and really should be going forward, in order to find a balance from who wants to maintain the character and those that want the amenities. We do not want to ruin the marketplace, do not want to ruin the lifestyle of who lives here as well. So we have to find the right balance, and I think this study could be very important in going in that right direction. Will it mean that the houses, the zoning will be reduced? Maybe. But maybe the problem is not so much the size of the homes, maybe it's lot coverage, maybe it's architecture. So these are the type of things that we really have to understand. People say all the time, we have these beautiful homes on Elm Street and whatnot. We want to maintain them, but can we build them today, on today's zoning? Maybe yes, maybe no, probably not. But at the same time, these houses probably have a certain character that can be transcended and brought forward in the future zoning. So it's all to be seen. We don't have an answer yet, and that's why we're talking to these consultants. And the reason we chose Glynis versus the other ones, because the other ones were more analytical, more the numbers, more the sketches, whereas Glynis is going to be more, I think, the aesthetic approach as to what the village really should be looking like and how to get there. And also, she's an architect and will be able to communicate closely with architects to make sure that whatever she proposes is realistic on the ground as well.
Well, here's
Just a moment. I'd like to correct your phrase, a vocal minority. You may not be aware of this, but I'd be glad to show you the papers if you want them. There were 233 local residents who signed a petition that was handed out by the Southampton Association objecting to the subdivision of two corner properties that were owned by, probably still are, by Paul Robinson. They were steamrolled by the
So
ZBA.
this was years ago.
Yes,
This
years
was
ago.
many years ago.
Well, not that many. Let me go on.
This is
quite
before we
current.
changed the zoning.
No.
This
Just a
was years
moment.
ago. With Paul Robinson, this was before we changed the zoning. This was a long time ago.
No, it is not. Just a moment. And as for those properties, after the 233 signatures were steamrolled, those properties are now being subdivided. Next, there were 47 signatories to a petition by Woolley Street against the violation of the pyramid law by a spec builder. They were steamrolled by the ZBA. And then there were 35 petitioners against the house at 18 Burnett Street because they felt it was too large for that tiny street. And they were steamrolled by the ARB. So when you talk about a vocal minority, one has to be pretty determined to keep coming back and get hit on the head by divisions of the mayor's administration who simply don't listen to the residents. So please don't use the phrase a vocal minority. There has been a large group of people. They just have not been heard.
There's 3,000 residents in the village. In the summertime, it goes up to tens of thousands. So that is a vocal minority. And also I object.
We had 5,000
I object to what you said about the administration, because the reason we're doing this study is because the mayor is very involved and wants to make sure that the residents that are complaining are heard.
Well,
So
let's
I
let them be heard.
I would not characterize the administration as not listening. It's quite the contrary. Yes.
Well, I don't agree with Evelyn because first off, petitions mean nothing. If you want to do something, you gotta show up here.
Right.
And you don't know if those were legitimate. They're no good in court, you gotta show up. You go to court, you gotta show up. There's no letters, there's no nonsense. And it's really aggravating when you go to the ARB and somebody submits a letter and they don't show up and they're against your house or whatever. And that's not true about the administration because, listen, they lowered the houses like overnight. And I thought that was, I don't agree with it, but that was a pretty big step towards what they're trying to do. As far as some architect coming here and saying what the character is, I've been through this village with dozens of architects, and they can't figure out what the character is of this village. They said you have flat roof houses on the ocean, you got a Victorian next to it, you got a house that's a ranch, then you got a brick house, and they said if anybody could really make a character, they'd be lying to you, because there is no character. And when you go to the ARB, there's no rhyme or reason anymore. I started litigation against them, we filed today. There's no rhyme or reason. You go through their videos and you tell me if they're arbitrary or not. One day you can have a roof deck, the guy next door can't have a roof deck, one guy needs 30-foot trees, one guy has an asphalt roof, you have Jay Schneiderman building a house with vinyl windows, okay? But meanwhile, I have to have wood windows in my house around the block. So what is going on with the ARB? What is going on with the planning of this village?
Can I ask you, are you in a historic district?
No.
But to answer, that's exactly what we are actually reviewing. This is why we want to update and revise our zoning regulations.
Michael has
so
a
that
point.
they address your issues.
That
Well,
is, character is very ephemeral, so, he has a point there. But people come to the village because there's a feel to it, regardless of the specific character of the houses, whether the brick, flat roof, or
Are you
whatever.
trying to say the charm of the village?
Yeah, there's something about the feel of the village, and it goes also with the homes that are here, and not only the new homes. I mean, some of the older homes, even some of the ranch houses are great. I mean, on White Street where I live, they just renovated some ranch houses. I mean, they didn't have to rebuild them. They renovated, and they look great, and they fit quite well with even the larger houses. But there's a certain feel to the village. That's what I mean by character. Of course, not everything's going to be the same. But, you don't want to overcrowd and take away that feel of, of community and well-being that you feel in the village if you start crowding people out. You have to be careful.
We're 99.9% built.
I know.
It's over with. No matter what you do, there's gonna be less crowding. There's actually less people in
Well,
this
there's a
village
lot
now
of,
than 10 years ago.
there's a lot of houses that, I mean, whenever something is built, it's knocked down, and then something else goes up. So, and there's still a lot of space to do that. And what we're looking at is, number one, maybe some of these older homes can be preserved. They don't need to be knocked down, and maybe that's part of what we're talking about, the character. Or at least if it's going to happen, that it's not something that just sticks out and it doesn't look right in the setting that exists around it. And I'm not saying that it has to, you have ranch houses, therefore you only can build ranch houses. But at the same token, if there's gonna be a development, and there will be over time a development, at least right now, that's where the market is going, although things could change. People could finally suddenly say, oh, these big houses are such a headache to maintain and whatnot. Maybe it's time to slow down and, the marketplace will take care of it. But we can't just let the marketplace take care of it, we also have to protect what we have, and that's the idea of this.
But what is, the problem that I have,
And remember, I'm pro-development, I'm pro owner's rights. I've always been, but I like to be balanced. That is, I don't want to restrict to the point that it hurts, but at the same token, I don't want to allow people to do whatever they want and therefore impinge on the character of the village and everybody else as well.
I'm pro-development, but I'm also, I have land right now that I could put 12 houses on, and I'm only putting 3. And the reason I'm doing that is to try to keep some kind of character to it.
Well, that's the right thing to do.
But the problem is that I have, there's no rules with the ARB. They'll talk about mass, okay? There's no definition of mass in the code. He said, well, we don't like the mass. And I said to them on my application, I said, did you know the mass of my house is actually less than the
Yeah,
existing?
Yeah.
And they
It's not
just
the mass,
scratched
it's
their
the
heads.
architecture, really.
There's no rules. If you made rules, there'd be no arguments. And there'd be no fights. They get sued constantly. They're always making these arbitrary decisions. They're putting people on the board. One member, he says every meeting, well, I don't know anything about architecture. Every meeting. I mean, and you have these people critiquing architects that have been to school for 7 years, 10 years of experience, telling them that they don't know what they're doing.
I thought this was going to be a short meeting.
And I just wish
Is it a
that,
lecture, or can we get into this?
You can definitely get into it.
I would like to point out why people no longer come. I'm in a 67-lot subdivision, the Roscoe Place subdivision that used to be. Only 4 people, 4 immediate neighbors, were informed about public hearings of the ARB. We tried to distribute that information to the people, so 37 people showed up at every hearing. We were steamrolled. So I don't care whether there are 10,000 people
What
here in
do
the
you mean-
summer.
what do you mean by
Those are not the
steamrolled?
people who are determining the character of our village.
Oh,
We
they are,
have,
the building,
how many
yeah.
voters now? 2,000, I think,
2,400.
2,400, right. We're going to be down to 1,000. Very easy to manage a little community like that. I'm trying to stand up for that little community. I love it.
Right.
Or I used to. It's harder to do these
Well,
days.
I can give you an example. When Romanowski was mayor, and we were deciding on the village police station, and of course, there was controversial design and stuff like that, so he rented the auditorium at the public school and asked everybody to, and advertised it. The only ones that showed up is the village board members, the ARB board members, and the other zoning boards
Even
were
the-
involved, and nobody else showed up. And after the building's built, I'm in the firehouse one day, and one of the local residents is giving me hell about the roof. And I said to him, where were you at this
This has
meeting?
not been true at the ARB meetings. However, it has gotten sparser. And I should point out to you that is he your attorney too, Bo Robinson? Has stopped people, women, 2 very bright women in the planning board meetings who had substantive points, including about that subdivision at the head of Moses. And he said, you are not supposed to ask questions. The board does not answer your questions. You gotta be kidding. Then he said, we don't want to know your concerns, we want your answers. The board has the experts, right? He shuts everybody up. Now, how many people are going to stand up for it? I do, and I'm alone. But not behind your back. Believe me, there's a great deal of dissatisfaction. A great deal.
Well, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's a start,
In order-
but
in
that's
order
not
to-
the voice of the people in the village. And I do think you owe the residents a responsibility to give them a chance to say what they would like to see. And that last questionnaire for the Civic Center was a farce. There's so much bias, question bias, word bias, rank bias that you can put into a questionnaire. You can get any answer you want if you do it that way. But if you really want to know what the people in the village think, there's a way to do it.
But that's part of that study. Actually, we have had long discussions about the process and to make sure that in that, there's a process that allows everybody to be heard, everybody to speak, and we, both the professional
Well, they're
community.
too discouraged to come to meetings. I think a questionnaire might help, and a telephone follow-up.
Right.
That's what was done in the excellent comprehensive plan of May 2000,
I don't
which
think they're
has
too-
been
I
ignored.
don't
That was
think they're- I don't think
excellent.
they're too discouraged. I think when things are going relatively well, people will not show up. And when we had the big discussions of zoning back in 2005, 2006,
That's
we
in my
had,
lifetime.
we had meetings with 100 people. We couldn't even fit them. We had to move from here. So, you know, when something is really touching people, then they will
And
show
they
up.
weren't listened to.
Well, no, they were listened to. Oh,
Nothing was done. The
that's not true.
zoning, the
That's not
zoning
true.
violated the comprehensive plan.
Absolutely not.
There was no
Absolutely
C-Corps
not.
review, which was mandatory by state law.
Listen, we
There.
changed the zoning, it was a major change, and
Yes, but it was not a
reflected-
legal change.
Well, it reflected what the community wanted at the time. And the proof of the matter is that
Then why
people.
didn't you do a C-Corps review, which is
I'm not
mandatory?
gonna get into what happened
Well-
7, 8 years ago with
Well, we're
secret
still living
review.
with it, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think the changes that were done back then were significant and were important and they worked well. Now we're looking at it again to see if it can be improved.
I'm glad you are, I'm
Yeah,
glad you
to
are.
see if it can be improved.
This is an opportunity to sort of define maybe what
I'm here
character
to
is.
help.
And to put it forward in pictures and phrases so that all of the people as well as architects and builders can be on the same page and really see what maybe a character is, what a character looks like today.
Yeah, if we can improve, we definitely should improve, so that's how we're
So-
gonna go forward
so
at
it's
this
in-
point.
inf-
No, I'm very
Information.
glad you're doing this.
Well, it's
I'm just saying,
information.
please,
And
let's
inf-
have the voice of the villagers too.
Well, of course, they will be, of course.
Right, if there's nothing further,
Thank you.
we call the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.